my respect to the land that I stand on, the Ngunnawal of the Wiradjuri country. I'd love to say it's an honour to be here, but I'm tired of coming out and talking about all the issues that harm people, that hurt people, that damage people, and that stain the consciousness national of all of us. 2015 and here we are today. In 1967, inherently the argument was that there was going to be change. Well, there isn't. It's still assimilation. That bent for assimilation hasn't gone. The more west you journey across this continent, the more west, as bad as it is on the east coast, which it is, disproportionate to the rest of the population, the more west you go, the more racist it gets, the more racialised it gets, the more extensive the extreme poverty, the more extensive the suicides, the more extensive the self-harms, the more extensive the hits on people, the more extensive the hits on remote communities, the homelands, the language in which we should be pitting this, not remote communities, but homelands. 2 years ago, I wrote a story about the pending closure of 180 remote communities, homelands. And the government came out and said I was a liar. They said I was fanciful and conspiratorial, and that my sources were fanciful and conspiratorial. Well, late last year we learnt that not only 180 communities are under threat, but 250. 100 in APY, 150 at least in the Western Desert and the Kimberley. In Adelaide today, where this hits close to home, there are more than 500 now standing at this moment in Adelaide at their rally. 500 have gathered together in this National Day of Action. In this National Day of Action of 30 rallies around the country that started from 1, then got to half a dozen and 13 and then 30. In the Kimberley, 46% of the population, the highest concentration in this continent, on this continent, regionally, is First Peoples. The highest concentration of remote communities in this nation is in Western Australia. The highest concentration of those remote communities is in the Kimberley. Today they have gathered at Birradu, they have gathered at Bidgadanga, Beagle Bay, One Arm, Derby, Warnham, and so on, because they're terrified. I go in and out of communities. I've been to more than 100 of Western Australia's communities and hundreds across the nation. And I tell you what the people are saying there. We're terrified. The uncertainty is scaring us all. The children are saying, what does this all mean? Where are we to go? How is this possible? In the last 7 years in Western Australia, all the government built was 700 public houses for 48,000 people on the waiting lists. 700 public houses. Well, if thousands are to move in one hit, in one foul swoop, are they going to build thousands of homes in the regional towns, in the larger towns? That's not going to happen. Look, I'm not going to talk about the narrative of the municipal bill. That's bullshit. That pittance $90 million bill for 282 communities in Western Australia, that's pittance. That's rubbish. And $10 million for 100 and plus communities in the APY. That's pittance. That's rubbish. This isn't about it. It was about what I wrote 2 years ago. To clear the land, the vast interior and the top end for commercial interests, for the mining interests, for the multinationals, for the developers, for food bowls, for agribusiness, and for the raping and pillaging of the land so the filthy multinationals can become filthier rich. It isn't conspiratorial. It's a fact of life. Look at the Aboriginal Heritage Act in Western Australia. It doesn't effectively exist anymore. It's gone. Aboriginal sites, sacred, ceremonial, under that act, 74% of them have been deregistered in the last year. There is nothing left in Western Australia but the hopes that they've got in themselves that the rest of this nation will rise to the occasion, because this is now the issue of our times. And we will be damned in the future for the dispossession of peoples, for the stealing of their lands, as we damn the past for the stolen generations and the stolen wages. I'm travelling the country at the moment with a Bardi, Kidja woman from the Kimberley, Adele Cox, who you'll hear a few words from in a minute. We work in suicide prevention. we do what we can and have taken into our own hands what governments have not been doing. We have the highest suicide rates disaggregated to our First Peoples in the world. In the Kimberley, you all know what's actually happening there. You know the child and youth suicides. From a racialised lens, they're the highest in the world. How is that possible in the 12th largest economy in the world, second wealthiest nation in the world, the nation with the highest median wages? How is that possible? But it is, and governments aren't listening. 7% of the Kimberley is homeless outside natural disasters and civil strife and wars. Where else is such a high rate? Where else in the world, when we look from a racialised lens, do we see such a high rate? 100% of that 7% are First Peoples. But we don't give them a mention. We don't do anything about it because no one gives a fuck. Because the Australian consciousness hasn't been tapped into it in the ways that it should. The lived experience of racism that I was born into continues to this very day. And if we don't say these things, as I said 2 years ago about 180 communities being closed, we will go nowhere soon. Thank you.